Hello and welcome back to this demonstration of the Oakgate Storage Validation Framework controller application. So you can see in the center column here that all of the steps within our test sets of our demo test script have now completed. So let's go ahead and look at the ways in which we can look at the results of the tests and indeed report upon the results of the tests. So to do that, we go across to the Performance Graphing tab, and you can see that I'm actually in the set 2 where we're increasing the I/O cap for 4K random writes. And if you look down in this graph box towards the bottom here, you can see I've previously created 3 graphs, one to report upon the average IOPS achieved in each iteration of the test, and one to report on average latency, and the next to report on maximum latency. So just to show you how easy it is, I'm going to create another graph for this set. Add a new graph, I'll give it a new name, and let's call it average power consumption. Enter. And I come over here to the axis values, and I'm going to change my y-axis to plot the total power. Then if I press regraph, up comes a graph. SVF generates a graph which shows the average total power consumption for each of the iterations of the test. Again, I can set the click value here to 5 volt plus 12 volt total power. So if I come up and click one of the points on the graph, oh, it hasn't come up yet, let's look at it. Here we have a detailed picture of the power consumption over time, which has gone to make up that average value. Okay. So I think you'll agree it's pretty easy to add graphs here. You can also notice in this graph box that we can tick a box to include the graph that we've defined to be included in a report. So I'll just check that the Precon 4K writes is included. It is. Then I'm going to go up to the demo test line, right click and select create test report. The first thing I need to do is decide where I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it in this MISC folder. I'll call it Demo Report 3. Press save. Now here we have the option to include low-level details in our report. This is the detailed information behind the higher-level graphs that we looked at a while ago in the SVF. We can also include the low-level power details, which I'd like to do. We can also combine LUN path results, so that we combine the results for more than one drive, more than one port into one graph. This is useful, for instance, if we're doing dual port testing, where we can combine, the performance of both ports together. So now we're testing one drive, so I'm going to create the new report. It's going to take a minute or two to do. It creates two types of reports, one an HTML report and another PDF. We'll have a look more closely at the HTML report in a moment. Just on the left hand side in Active Systems, you may have noticed that our entry for the Toshiba drive has turned into a sort of reddy brown colour, which signifies that it's failed. This is because, ironically, the UPS man came to collect the drive to return it to Toshiba before I started the recording of this second part of the demo, so the drive is no longer in. Okay, so anyway, looking back in the middle here, it's now creating the HTML details. Won't take long, so I'll just wait for it. Nearly finished. Now creating the PDF files, and it's taken us in and given us an opportunity to look at the results of or the report. Rather than going in this way, what I'm going to do is show you how to access it through the files it's created. Look in our MIST folder, here we see demo report 3, and you can see all of the entries that it has created. There's actually a lot of detailed entries as well for each of the graphs, HTML files, XML documents, and pictures. So anyway, we go back to the high level, and if we select pindex0, the HTML file, this is the root of the HTML report, so we open it, and you can see at the high level we've got a picture of all the graphs that we asked to be included in our report. So for preconditioning, for the increasing I/O cap for 4K random writes, we have IOPS latency, max latency, and power consumption. So if we go up to this average latency report, we can have a look at the graph details that have been recorded behind it. So we press graph details, and here you can see the details that it's recorded. So first of all, the absolute value, the average values that have been used to plot the high level report. And here the detailed values that have been recorded for each of those plots on the higher level graph. So for instance, if we go across to the 30,000 IOPS cap row, we can click this graph schematic in the right IOPS column, and this brings up a detailed picture of the performance over time graph that has constituted the average value at the higher level. I can also, by clicking the right IOPS letters and pressing open, new downloads, get right in a minute, I can see the actual values that have been used to plot the detailed performance over time graph, and I can of course take those into Excel. Actually, I'm looking at them in Excel, so I can produce my own graphs of those details if I wish to. Okay, so you can see a lot of detail has been recorded. I can look at latency distribution graphs as well. So again, for the 30,000 level, I click this schematic in the high res right latency column. Here's a high res latency distribution graph, where you can see the distribution of the latencies, or the counts of things. You can see that 99.999% of the time a latency of 22.76 milliseconds was achieved. At the 95% level, a latency of 670 microseconds was achieved. Okay, so you can see a lot of detail is recorded, which is a great benefit to me as a reviewer, because it gives me an easy way of filing not just the results of my tests, but the detailed data behind them, which is really, really good. So just a quick look at this preconditioning step. If I look at the graph details and look at the right IOPS schematic, here you can see a picture of the performance over time of the 4K random writes preconditioning step, and you can see the same picture that we saw inside SVF, where you can see the performance over time over the 6-hour period. So at the beginning, it's when we've got fresh blocks to write to, then we go over the right cliff, and then it eventually settles in to a reasonably consistent performance over time. Okay, so that's it. That's that's the end of the demo. I hope you can see how easy it is to create things and report upon things in SVF. I should emphasize, I've focused on the sort of functionality I use for performance benchmarking, but SVF has the ability to do a great deal more, such as injecting errors into your traffic, so you can test how the drive behaves in error conditions. We can validate the data that has been written is still there. We can do directed reports where a user can specify their own result tests to be performed using various APIs, so they can do anything they wish using the SVF framework. But anyway, I hope this gives you a reasonable feel from what is, I'm not sure if you agree, but it's a fairly brief demo of the functionality that SVF has. Okay, so thank you for your concentration, attendance and patience. Cheers.